we all want to differentiate our company so we stand out in this very crowded marketplace. And the key here, and this is a big key, is we got to be different. We've got to fascinate the marketplace so that they are attracted to us, the right clients, the right customers, so we have the steady stream of pre-qualified, pre-endorsed people wanting to work with us. Well, here's the challenge. Most of us don't fascinate to the level we'd like. And we have the real opportunity today. I've got an unbelievable guest who has worked with our companies, my top entrepreneurs that I've had the privilege of working with, and has made a huge difference. And Sally Hogshead is going to make a huge difference for you. Hang in there. It's going to be great.
Ordinary success? No way. You want amazing, remarkable, exceptional breakthroughs. Dig deep, think bold, drive hard, watch yourself soar beyond your dreams. AESNation.com.
Sally, I want to thank you for joining us today. I mean, this is amazing, the power of Skype. We're able to get together for all the video viewers, the audio, they can listen to us. Tell me, you are always on the cutting edge of marketing. You've done a great job working with large companies, and now all of a sudden you're bringing it to both the individual entrepreneur and their firms. And what are you doing?
I just spent a round of research finding out exactly what makes one entrepreneur more valuable than the others. In other words, why can certain entrepreneurs charge more even though they're selling the exact same product? Even if what you're selling is a commodity, how can you make sure that your personality is adding so much value to the transaction that you're able to raise your fees for your products and services, that you're the most desirable go-to option in your market? And what I found is there are very specific patterns that high performers follow. People who make the most money, scale their businesses the most quickly, and create the most profit are able to do that because they understand how the world sees them. Instead of focusing on how you see the world, you already know how you see the world. Imagine if you could see the opposite perspective, to see yourself through the eyes of your clients, to see how the world sees you.
Well, that is such an important distinction because we have our world vision and we can really see how that comes together and so on. But when all of a sudden we have the ability to understand how the world sees us and how we can then take our strengths and really leverage those in the marketplace to attract the right clients, to surround ourselves with a team that can support our initiatives. I mean, this is where it comes together unbelievably well.
Yes. So let me give you a couple of highlights here so that you can begin to immediately apply this. Your personality has key differentiating qualities, and the more that you can focus on the qualities that make you different, the more likely your ideal client is likely to seek you out, find you, pay you more money, refer you, and stay loyal to you. What I found in my 3 years of research while I was researching my new book, I studied over 100,000 entrepreneurs, and I found that the ones who are most successful understand that they need to specialize their personality in some particular way. They need to stand out by finding something that they already have within them, some sort of built-in competitive advantage that they can use to make sure that they don't become a commodity. We found that the high performers, the ones who were the most profitable, also understood that they needed to create a personality specialty and that they were able to communicate to their prospect immediately what makes them different than their competitors. And so I took my decade of research with companies and I combined it with a decade of research on personality. And I developed the first system to be able to measure exactly how your personality adds value so that every time you communicate, you can be seen at your best. People are more likely to focus on you and take action on what you say.
Well, I know, Sally, we were privileged, my financial advisor mastermind group, roundtable we call it, to have an early look at what you were doing in this. And I got to tell you, so many of the advisors, these are some of the most successful ones in the country, just really loved it because it provided the framing so that they could look around the room and see all of them were different. But all of a sudden now they saw what their strengths were and how to magnify and how to bring it out in the world so that they were able to really accelerate their business. And I've had the privilege of working with a number of entrepreneurs, many of them that are on watching this or listening to us today, and just seeing kind of these, I want to say subtle, but it's really not subtle. It's something that we don't spend time on. We're so busy thinking about marketing and sending out email blasts and doing this and that we don't play to our strengths and put it in a language that really kind of keeps that attraction going at a higher level.
Yes. If you don't know your own value, don't expect anyone else to. It's not your client's job to figure out what makes you valuable. It's not your prospect's job to figure out why they should care. It's your job. It's your job to earn and hold your listeners' attention for you to make sure that you make it really easy for them to say yes. If you have a clear snapshot of how you add value, if you can explain it in just a few words, people are far more likely to listen to you, buy from you, champion for you, join you, hire you, pay more for what you do. And it all starts with understanding what's your natural fascination advantage, and then how do you articulate that in 9 seconds or less, so that from the first moment that you meet somebody, you can front load your value to make them interested and even fascinated to learn more.
Well, I know, I forgot who, I think it's a mutual friend, Richard Larimer, had recommended your book, the first book that you did.
Fascinate.
Yeah, Fascinated. Right. And I read it, and I got to say, I was fascinated. It was not what I expected. And then and then immediately I asked you if you'd come out and speak for one of my groups. And, we've done a number of things together, and I was just blown away. And then, I got the advanced copy of the book here, and, you just continued on that journey and really making it even more valuable for entrepreneurs. But one of the things when we start talking about it, particularly a lot of us guys aren't that fascinated. We don't think we are, and we don't know how.
You don't think you are.
Yeah.
The reality is everybody's fascinating, but in a different way. You just have to know how to articulate it.
Well, and so help us with, as entrepreneurs, how are we going to go about doing this? I mean, you've done all this great research and everything else, and you've seen the results, the magnifying of success, the ability to grow the business exponentially, which is what we're all about here today. And, how do we go about actually leveraging your research?
Yes. In my last book was named Fascinate, and Fascinate was all about brands and how different companies create messages that earn the intense interest of their consumer or their prospect. And one of the things we found is that people will pay 4 times more if they're fascinated by a product or service, even if it's a commodity. So, for example, if you give a woman 2 pairs of sunglasses that are exactly the same, and one of those pairs has a Chanel logo, the woman will pay 400% more for the pair with the Chanel logo, even though the glasses themselves are the same. So we went on to expand this research with people, and what we found is that people will pay more for two different people, even if they're evenly matched in terms of their skill set, their reputation, their network. 2 people who can be perceived as being a commodity can charge radically different prices depending on how effectively they communicate how they're going to add value. Every time you communicate, every time you get in front of your prospect, you're going to do one of 2 things. You're either going to add value or you're going to take up space. If you add value when you communicate to them, in other words, if you give them something that's informational, inspirational, or you're giving them something that's insightful, they're going to be more likely to come back to you. They're going to refer you. They're going to stay loyal to you. They're going to buy more from you. But if you don't add value, then you're taking up space. And if you're only taking up space, you're at risk of being perceived as human spam. When you're human spam, people delete your messages, they don't answer your calls, they avoid talking to you, they screen you out. And at that point, you're vulnerable and you have to begin competing on price. So before you open your mouth to speak, in a conference call, in a meeting, before you send that email to a prospect, stop and think to yourself, am I going to add value or am I going to take up space? Now, this seems like this is daunting because when people take up space, we want to shut them out. But the reality is that you can add value no matter what your personality, no matter what your product or your service. You can stand out and be perceived as intensely valuable, 4 times more valuable than your competition if you know what is it within you that your customer desires. And that's what I described in this new book, How the World Sees You. I deconstruct exactly how different personality types instantly add that value so that their prospect becomes ferociously focused on what they're saying and gets in the flow with them to want to hear more so that you can create the relationship and create that loyalty.
Well, and this is so valuable because when we look at it, because I'm in financial services, we study the affluent, and what we find is that on average, the affluent have somewhere around 4,000 messages a day, marketing messages. And geez, with 4,000, I mean, it's so much noise out there. Sally, how I can see how once we get a conversation starting, how do we use this in the overall, creating the awareness and then continuing the conversation, because we want to work with the right clients. And for most of us as entrepreneurs, the lifetime value of any single client is really amazing. And to the extent we can nail all this, we can really scale the business and make it all come together. So how do we start?
Yeah, you're on exactly the right track. It all begins with understanding exactly how you need to front load your value into those first 9 seconds of an interaction. I began my career as an advertising copywriter. My very first client was Nike. Now, John, what is Nike's tagline? Do you remember?
I think I would be surprised if someone doesn't know it. Just do it. I mean, not only do I see the tagline, but that little squish.
Swoosh, right?
Yes.
So just do it. So with 3 words, Nike is instantly creating not just a picture in your mind about shoelaces and rubber soles. Nike is telling you their whole mission statement. They're describing to you the company, who works for the company, who buys the product, why you should buy the product, how you should use the product. It's incredibly efficient. A tagline is an extraordinarily surgically precise form of communication, because with just a few words, you're describing a tremendous amount of information. But I realized that we don't have taglines for ourselves. Products have taglines. That's how they differentiate themselves. We as entrepreneurs need taglines. And so I set out to create the first system to help you develop what is your tagline. And so when readers of the book will be able to create their own, what I call an anthem. An anthem is your personality tagline. It summarizes your highest value so that in 2 to 3 words, you can communicate why you're different and how you're better than your competition.
No, and that's so important. I mean, we see the power. I mean, Nike, we can go through almost every major brand. They have communicated very effectively. And a lot of times, smaller or mid-sized entrepreneurs, we don't think we can do this. And this can be, a huge competitive advantage, because most people are focused on just, shooting out all kinds of messaging and hoping something happens.
And that's why they're creating spam, because they're not focusing on adding value. Instead they're going for a mass approach. If you have messages that don't take up value, you have to have a huge marketing budget in order to be able to succeed. But if you add value with every message with a very, very clear differentiation, then you can be very precise. You don't have to spend as much money. So maybe we could talk about how you add value, John.
Well, no, we could certainly investigate this. Sally did give me a little in the pre-call, told me that we would be doing this, and I said I would, only because I want to have everyone else learn from the experience. And it's been really valuable for me. And I still remember when we first did this, and my team got all excited about it, because it helped put in the perspective and really what side of the line I should be working on and staying focused and leveraging it. So, Sally, why don't we go ahead and do that?
Sure. The assessment that you took is named the Fascination Advantage, and we're going to give a free code for people to be able to take it later. The Fascination Advantage is based on studies of over 300,000 individuals in companies like AT&T, GE, Cisco, as well as 100,000 entrepreneurs. And when you do the assessment, you'll learn that there are 7 different advantages, 7 different ways of adding value and communicating. And I'm going to turn to the back of the book. This is what's called the galley copy. A galley copy is the advanced reader's version that comes from the publisher. The book hasn't been published yet. I actually have not received the hardcover version yet from my publisher.
Well, but I did receive. I'm just going to, how good a value you've done, Sally. Not only did Sally give me one of these, but she tagged the parts I should pay attention to, because, actually, I'm going to put on the screen just real quick, my report just showing the cover of it, the change agent. And Sally, why don't let's dive in. This is huge value that everybody's getting. Why don't we go back to you and you've got all these different names for all of us as entrepreneurs. How's it come together? And go ahead.
Your personality has one primary way that when you communicate using your primary built-in natural advantage, you're going to be perceived as more influential and more impressive. This is how you're most likely to make a positive impression. You have a secondary advantage that combines with your first, that also describes how you add value. When you put your primary and secondary together, you get the archetype. Now I'm going to show you, this is what inside the book, This is what the archetype matrix looks like. So you can see, you can't read it, so you'll have to take my word for it. But there are 49 different archetypes here, and the archetypes describe different ways that people add value. So for example, there's the wise owl, the veiled strength, the ace, the royal guard, the mastermind, the people's champion, the rock star, the avant-garde, the evolutionary. Each one of these describes a different way of communicating, a different way of making a certain impression. And it's built on the cues that you intentionally or unintentionally show your prospect or your client when you're communicating. Imagine a traditional mirror. If you look into a regular mirror, it just reflects how you see yourself. But now for the first time, I've been able to create a new way of seeing you, a different type of mirror. And this mirror shows you the best of how the world sees you. So instead of showing you how you see yourself with your flaws and your insecurities, instead, we're showing you the best of how people are likely to see you and want to do business with you and what they truly value in you. So think of this assessment like a mirror that you hold up to yourself to see the best of how the world sees you so that you can focus on those core areas and do more of what you're already doing right. So when John took the assessment, he took one of the earliest versions of the assessment. This was 3.5 years ago. And when John took the assessment, here's what we learned. He has a primary power advantage. See here, power.
You know what I'm going to do, Sally? I'm going to put my report on the page 4. It has the primary, secondary, and dormant. Why don't you explain? And the reason why we're doing this, and let me just set a little framing here. Why we're doing this is you can do it. And Sally has graciously made available, we're going to have a special secret code, no handshake, but secret code that you can use to get for free what is normally $37, so you can do this report on you. And that you can share with your team. Yeah, and it's very powerful. And so, Sally, let me put back up on the screen my report, and we've got the primary, secondary, and dormant. Everyone's going to get this when they do the report. What does that mean?
Yes, so your primary is your most influential way of communicating. When you communicate using your primary advantage, it feels effortless. John, for you, as we learned, your primary advantage is power. That means you speak with confidence. When you're in a situation, John, in which you can communicate with confidence, when you're able to share your opinions, when you're able to be a leader, for you, that probably feels effortless, doesn't it? It feels like a wellspring.
Well, I feel like we're hanging out, Sally, today. I mean, would be a great example. This is something I really enjoy doing. And you and I are having a cup of coffee with 1,000 of our friends type thing. And this is a great way of doing it.
Your secondary advantage is innovation. Innovation is about creativity, being able to see from an entrepreneurial perspective, being able to create pioneering ideas to take those quantum leaps. So instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4, you leap from here all the way over to here. So you're able to come up with solutions that other people would not be able to come up with. When you put power and innovation together, your archetype is named the change agent. The change agent is described with 3 adjectives. If you can put your report up so that they can see the change agent right here.
They can see that I'm inventive, untraditional, and self-propelled.
You, John, are going to be at your highest value in situations that set you up for success when people are asking you to be inventive, untraditional, and self-propelled. That means that if you're going into a meeting in which you have a do or die outcome, you're either going to win or you're going to lose. Let's say you're pitching. Let's say you're trying to convince somebody to work for you, work with you, or to hire you. A situation in which you have to win the moment. You're going to set yourself up for success by being those 3 adjectives: inventive, untraditional, and self-propelled. So let's take inventive. When you come into that meeting, you need to think ahead. What is it that I can show them that they don't already know? What could I invent? Would it be a solution? Would it be a possibility? Would it be information? Would it be insight? The more that you can invent and be inventive in that meeting, the more fascinated they're going to be and the more highly they will value you. Your second adjective is untraditional. Most people, including financial advisors or entrepreneurs, tend to look at things one way. You, John, look at things another way. And the more that you can look at things in that other way and help other people see things in an untraditional way, again, the more successful and valuable you're going to be. Finally, self-propelled. Anybody who knows you knows that this is true of you. You have an extraordinary amount of energy and focus and drive. You have an ambition and a confidence. It's almost like a built-in horsepower. So you are self-propelled, and that's part of the secret of your success. Now imagine that you go into this meeting in which you're going to have to win the moment. You have high stakes here, and you're either going to win or you're going to lose. If you are prevented from being inventive, untraditional, or self-propelled, you are not likely to have an advantage. You could very likely lose in this situation. So imagine you open the door to that meeting and you walk in and it's a room full of people at the boardroom, and these are potential investors, potential partners, potential client. And they say to you, John, we're looking for somebody who does things the exact same way as always, and somebody who's going to take our orders. We simply want to replicate past success. Are you our guy? Yeah. What do you say?
I politely decline.
You would be wise to decline. Now, here's why. You have a competitive disadvantage in that situation. Other people have an advantage. There are other people who would walk into that scenario and say, my God, yes, that would be the perfect job description for me. And you can find those people on here. There are certain personalities on here that want very much to replicate past success. They don't want to invent. They want to replicate. Those people have an advantage there. Well, I just laid out a situation for you in clear black or white, but now imagine it's not just about the meeting. It's about the email that you're going to send out to your list. It's about the website that you're going to create. It's about the face-to-face conversation that you have to have with your significant other over where you're going to go on vacation. Anytime you want to convince the person that you're talking to, you have to add value immediately. And the path to doing that is spelled out on this matrix so that you can understand how you should focus yourself. The three words that we described for you, inventive, untraditional, and self-propelled, means that you can take those words, you can use that to describe yourself on your website. We have entrepreneurs film videos of themselves, and they use phraseology like this. They look at the camera and they say, if you're like me, you're inventive, untraditional, and self-propelled. So you don't want regular ideas. I'm your change agent and I can help you. So imagine that you take the assessment, you can literally take those words and feed them right back. We have had clients within 24 hours had a 300% increase in their marketing response simply because they gave people the words to help them say yes. So when you communicate yourself in a way that gives an accurate snapshot, an authentic, confident snapshot of yourself, they're far more likely to say yes.
Well, and I got to say, Sally, I'm going into a meeting. I'm flying out Monday, actually, close to your place here. And it's a very large potential engagement. There's 2 in a row that are 7 figures. And the reason I believe that they're even talking with me is those 3. We were very clear that we're not the right ones. When initially they had it all planned out. And we said, we're not the right ones. I mean, right. I'll be more than happy to share with you how we would do it differently so you could at least think about it, consider it, and then, boy, amazingly, they go, you know what, maybe you should, we should probably work together on this. The one thing though,
then can I say, John?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's key that you do that, and it's something that all entrepreneurs need to be able to do. As important as it is to know where you have an advantage, you need to know where you have a disadvantage so you can take those things off the table. Remember, every time you communicate, you're either adding value or you're taking up space. If you're not adding value, you're damaging your reputation. You're disincentivizing people from communicating with you in the future. You are actually hurting your odds of succeeding the next time. And so what you did, John, so brilliantly in that scenario is that you set yourself up for success, but you also mitigated potential damage for the future.
Well, and so many of us as entrepreneurs are unconsciously competent doing this, and we're not doing it as well as we should. And that's where this really comes together.
It's a system.
Yeah, and one of the things I want to point out, because my team loved you, because not only did it provide clarity on how the world sees me, but it also provided some clarity on, geez, I could get myself in trouble real quick if I don't surround myself with the right people. And when I put the report up again, Sally, and I want to have you talk about the dormant advantage and some of the challenges there.
Yes, your dormant advantage
was alert.
Your dormant advantage is alert. Alert is the language of details. People who have dormant alert are not as focused on the detail because they're focused on the bigger picture. They tend to look more at vision than they do at the nitty gritty. So John, what this means is that your highest value is not managing the minutia. Your highest value is not implementation. Your highest value is developing the vision to develop the big idea so that people know where to go. What is the big goal and how can we creatively get there in a way that is inventive, untraditional, and self-propelled? So the person that you most need to hire is not somebody that replicates yourself. This is the biggest mistake entrepreneurs make. Our overhead is largely determined by our staff, by the people we hire. So it's crucial for us to surround ourselves and invest wisely in the personalities that we choose. But the mistake that we make is we try to replicate ourselves. And when we replicate ourselves, we create teams that are lopsided so that we double down on one advantage, but then we have this gaping hole in another. You, very wisely, surrounded yourself with personalities that are great with alert. In other words, they're detail-oriented people. I've done the same with my team. I hire for 3 advantages. I hire for alert, mystique, which is the language of listening, and trust, which is the language of stability. I am not good at creating stability. I'm not good at listening and observation as a day-to-day task, and I'm not good at details. So if I don't have to focus on that, and I can optimize myself by that, I can focus on the highest order of value that I can possibly create. Imagine a pyramid, and at the top of the pyramid is the highest value you can possibly offer to others, your family, your clients, your coworkers. If you can just focus on that top 1%, you become intensely valuable. But the problem is that we focus down here on the commodity. So by knowing your dormant advantage, it tells you who you probably need to hire and what the danger zones are of your personality, the place where you could have a pitfall.
No, this is so valuable, Sally. And I mean, every time I talk to you, it just helps refine. And what I want to do is let me play a segment because I want everybody to have this. And it's the book of the day segment. And I'm not going to let you name somebody else. I want you to name your new book. And how would they go about finding this?
The name of the book is How the World Sees You. Discover your highest value through the science of fascination. You can buy it on Amazon. You can buy it in Barnes & Noble. Or if you want special bonuses, you can order it on my site at howtheworldseesyou.com.
And I've just put that up. And it's howtheworldseesyou.com. And it's a great site. What kind of bonuses are they going to get, Sally, by going here?
The first question that everybody always asks us is, how do I read other people? Wouldn't you want to know? Imagine being able to walk into a meeting and you can look around the table and you can read the unconscious cues that they're sending you, that right now you're not able to interpret them. One of the bonuses is named How to Read Other People, and it gives you a step-by-step guide to understanding, once you know yourself, who are you likely to not get along with? How can you read those cues? How can you see what somebody's intentions or motives are that they're not even consciously aware that they're signaling to you?
Well, and I can think all the way from high school on, that would be extremely valuable here.
Extremely valuable. Imagine having data that you didn't have before that could give you an algorithm to understand what people around you are actually saying, people that you right now are not clicking with. How could you potentially connect with them more quickly? Or how could you know to avoid the people that are not going to help you achieve the result that you're trying to get? And you can get those bonuses for free when you pre-order or order at howtheworldseesyou.com.
Yeah, and let me just show, I mean, you can go through, and I'm just leafing through the website, and there's all kinds of bonuses here and so on. And it's just an amazing part. And right at the bottom, we've got the free Fascination Advantage assessment that is huge. And you can see the printout that Sally's been holding up here is there, and you can almost read it here too. But the way to read it is to get the book, because it is, I got to tell you, for our team, Sally, it's been amazing. It's helped us. One of the biggest challenges is, how do you communicate effectively with other people, and how could you know that without knowing who you are and how they see you? And then, with those attributes, and we're all different, but we don't know how different, and we can just really quickly take this and have some amazing success in communication from the awareness all the way through the client cycle.
Entrepreneurs need to know this more than anybody, because for most entrepreneurs, we are the drivers of our business. We are the engine that's driving the whole business forward. And if we're not at our most optimally effective, then we're hurting the chances of the business moving forward. And we're also not doing any favors for our employees. Our employees need us to be at our most effective. We also need our employees to be at their most effective. And there's a formula to that. There's a formula for how to hire. There's a formula for making sure that each person in the business is communicating at their maximum level. And I spell all that out in part 3 of the book. I tell you exactly what you need on your team to make sure that you're going to get the best result. For example, here's an example of a page. I'm looking at page 332. So you can't read that, but what you can see...
Well, you can read it almost.
You can read it almost. So it could just be that this is Pig Latin.
Yeah.
You can almost read that this is taking each personality type. This is the how does the power innovate? How does the power personality get along with other personalities, and what do you need? My point is, this has been deconstructed to a level that has never been possible before. Look, we all know we need a personal brand. That's not news. A personal brand, though, gets you a long way in your 20s, and after that, it doesn't really provide anymore. We need a more sophisticated tool. As entrepreneurs, we need to be able to communicate in a far more sophisticated way so that we can identify and articulate exactly what we bring to the party. And when you can do that, when you can make it really easy for the person on the other side of the table to understand in a quick snapshot how you can deliver differently than everybody else, they're far more likely to listen to you, respect you, and say yes.
No, and what's great too is, there's no wrong personality to be an entrepreneur. It's all about figuring out who you are and how the world sees you, and then it comes at your best. That's really important. Thank you, Sally. Sally, let me go. I want one last segment here. It's all about sharing. You have so much energy and so much to offer for entrepreneurs. I want to narrow it down to one insight that is going to help everyone who's watching or listening to this really make a huge difference out there.
Here's the key thing that I want people to remember. You don't have to change who you are. You don't have to change who you are. You have to become more of who you are. So this is about recognizing what you're already doing right. Imagine that you don't have to change anything about yourself. You don't have to spend more on marketing. You don't have to spend more on overhead, but you do need to identify what are you already doing at your best so that you can do more of what's working and focus your whole business around that. There's something so relaxing about that. I mean, what a relief. You don't have to change. You can stop trying to fix the parts that are supposedly broken and instead just focus on those areas that give you energy, that feel like a wellspring. The greatest value that you can add is to become more of yourself. And that's what your clients want from you, especially your ideal clients. So what I'm most passionate about right now is helping more people find out how they can become more of themselves. And we created a not-for-profit. It's named the Project Fascination. You can check it out if you'd like to at projectfascination.com. And on Project Fascination, we're inviting people to become advocates and to help pay it forward by showing other people their highest value. And so I want you to take John's code that we're going to give you. I want you to take that code and I want you to give it to people that you think need to understand their highest value to become more valuable. You can give it to your team at work to make them more effective. You can give it to a sports team. You can give it to a book club, but you can also give it to a nonprofit. You can donate your code. When you take John's code, you can share it with somebody who needs to understand what makes them valuable. And you're kind of giving them this magic mirror that shows them the best of how the world sees them. And the more that you can share this on Twitter and on Facebook, the more people can understand what makes them valuable so they can keep paying it forward. And this is a change that I see that we need to be making throughout business, is stop focusing on our insecurities and so-called flaws and instead focus on what we're already doing right.
So let me share this one report. And I want to share the key takeaways that I took, Sally, from this. I mean, number one, it's so important for us to, how the world sees us. And so once we know who we are, that alone is going to be such a competitive advantage because most people don't know that. Second, once we have that, what I love that you've done is, I can identify from the grid my personality, dominant, and so on, but the messaging that comes out of that now. So I now know how to communicate with all these marketing messages as well as client support. I now have that. And you talked about just as simple as saying in the camera. I mean, that's going to resonate. Whatever your personality is, taking that messaging is going to be extremely powerful. And then the last part is, nothing great is ever accomplished on our own. So I love the idea that we can identify how to surround ourselves with the right complementary teammates who are going to just help us accelerate our success.
And that those people may not be the ones that you click with at first. That the person that you most need is not necessarily the one you want to go out and hang out with after work. The person that you most need might actually be the person who irritates you because they're the opposite of you. But once you can see the best in people, you can see how somebody adds value, it reduces conflict immediately. We've seen conflict go down immediately within large teams once they can see how each person adds value and understand and communicate what that difference is. And that difference is good and positive and should be accentuated. Okay.
Let's go over the resources again, Sally. I've got the website, howtheworldseesyou.com. You definitely want to go there. Take advantage of the bonuses, the books. I don't know, how are we going to get the secret code to them?
I will tell them the secret code. And can you put it in the show notes?
I will put it. I will put it wherever you're seeing this. You can always go to aesnation.com, Accelerating Entrepreneurial Success, nation.com, aesnation.com, and we'll have the whole show transcribed. You'll have that available as well as all the links Sally and I talked about. In addition, the secret code.
The secret code is J Bowen, all one word, not case sensitive. J Bowen. And to take the assessment, here's the URL. Ready? The URL is start over. And the URL is howtheworldseesyou.com/you, Y-O-U. So howtheworldseesyou.com/ word you, Y-O-U. And the code, which you are invited to share, pay it forward, is jbowen.com.
No, that's great, Sally. I really appreciate you making this available to all our viewers. I'm going to just put up the site. You can see again. It will let you go ahead and do the report, and you can use the secret code. It's the book code, and it's J Bowen. I appreciate using my name here, and I'm going to encourage everyone to go out and do this because it's so valuable for yourself. And Sally's being extremely kind, making it available for all of you as entrepreneurs to share it. So, Sally, I want to thank you for spending the time today. I mean, I know you're out there on the book tour, kind of promoting, getting everything ready to go on this, and you're extremely busy. It's been very valuable, and it'll be even more valuable as our entrepreneurs go out and take advantage of this.
I'm honored to be able to talk with you, John. I have to tell you, you have always been somebody in the industry who has such a powerful voice. You're such an authentic thought leader. You have always had a distinct point of view, and we need more of you out there because you're really making a difference, not only in your work, but also in the point of view that you give us as your fellow entrepreneurs. Thank you.
Well, no, it's been a lot of fun, and the only way we're going to take care of our clients, our current and our future, is to really understand how they see us and how we can go out and make a major difference. Let's go out and make a difference.
Exceptional, remarkable breakthroughs. aesnation.com